Here's a demonstration of a really useful new analysis tool that Power BI makes available to us. In Power BI, it's actually called a decomposition tree, but I don't think that kind of terminology is particularly helpful, so I call mine an analysis tree. And in this example, we're looking at the Key Stage 2 reading scaled score and the Key Stage 2 math scaled score, both of them on this same page in the School Analytics Power BI system. So here we are, we're looking at the reading scaled score, and this gives us an average reading scaled score for all the pupils in my school. This will be from year 7 all the way up to, I think, year 10, which are the earliest year to have a scaled score. And that is giving me an average score for all my pupils of 105.08. Last year, 2019, the average for reading was 104. So I've coloured that in green. So I've got some conditional colours appearing here. I'm colouring that green because it's above the national average. And you'll see if I hover the mouse over there, it tells me what the average is and also tells me how many pupils are within that average. So in the cases that we get to later on, where we maybe only have 1 or 2 pupils, we know exactly how many pupils we're going to have. And the way this analysis has been built up, we've then analysed the split between SEN and non-SEN pupils here. And this is telling us that for our non-SEN pupils, the average is 105.46, and for our SEN pupils, it's 100.9. And again, I get the relative numbers of each of those 2 categories of pupil. And then at the next level, I've chosen persistent absentee year to date, and the non-persistent absentees, as you possibly expect, get a better scaled score than the persistent absentees. And then it continues, we split it again. So again, I'd chosen just to look at the persistent absentees, just the yeses there, and then we split it by pupil premium. So amongst the persistent absentees, those pupils who are pupil premium pupils got an average of 104.67. The persistent absentees who weren't got an average of 101.5. And then a split again by year group. And you can see there when I look at the non-pupil premium pupils who were persistent absentees, who are not SEN, then their average is 97. Well, who are those pupils? Well, you can tell immediately it's just a single pupil there, and you can right-click and drill through and show a pupil list with the actual photograph of the pupil on there, so you can identify pupils nice and quickly. But we're not limited to using the grid in this exact same way. So I can get rid of these categories and start again from scratch, and this is where it becomes, I think, much more useful. Because what I can do now is I can choose in which order I look at these various different potential barriers to learning for the pupils. So maybe this time I'm more interested in analysing this by year group. So again, I've got my reading scaled score, and this time I can see it by year group. I've got a small scroll button on the bottom there, so I can see all the year groups. Or at any stage I wish, I can use the focus mode to take up the whole page. Maybe the whole page is a good way of looking at this, because I want to maybe drill down into perhaps why year 9 has got an overall quite a low Key Stage 2 reading score. I can see there's 157 pupils in there. Well, let's drill a bit further into that. Let's click the plus button here, and that gives me some more categories that I can look into. So perhaps I'm wondering if this is a white British, non-white British split. I can open up that category, and that now shows me the difference there, white British and non-white British. Well, that doesn't seem to be much of an issue. It's much the same score either way there, so I'll take that one off, and let's investigate something else. Well, we could see if it's a gender issue in year 9. And again, looking at the gender split there, no real difference. So I could continue if I wanted to, looking down this list and looking for areas perhaps that I could investigate and do some kind of intervention for. Or I can use Power BI's artificial intelligence, which is represented by these 2 light bulb symbols here. Well, if I go for low value here, clicking on year 9 and looking for low value, what it will do, tells you what it will do if I hover the mouse just there, is it will find the field where one value is significantly lower than the others. So this will now scan the data and look for a category, one of these categories, that has a substantial impact on the lowness of that value. So let's see what it comes up with. Well, it's picked ethnicity there, and you can see what we've got here. It's put them all in order. They're flashing up red because all these are below 100, and I've put some colours on here to highlight pupils or groups of pupils whose average is below 100. And you can see the lowest one it's found is this category here. And as you might imagine there, the refused category there, just a single pupil. But it's also given the option of reviewing some of these other categories. And I can always scroll up, and I can scroll right to the top, and this gives me the opposite. So this gives me the category for which we have the highest scaled score. So that's using some of the AI capabilities. And what you get, of course, depends exactly at what stage you invoke the AI capabilities. But there's so many different categories we can add on here. I've put and found these kind of categories, which I think are the ones most likely to influence things like the reading scaled score. But again, with Power BI, we can choose any category whatsoever and do the analysis on those. So I think these particular trees are a really useful way of analysing data. They're very flexible, and all your teaching staff, your senior leadership, can analyse them in different ways. And the number of ways in which they can analyse them is almost infinite. I'll put an example of this in a link at the bottom of this video so you can link and load up an analysis like this. A reminder that Power BI is available to schools over the internet, so you don't have to have Power BI installed on a local PC, and Power BI also integrates very well with Microsoft Teams.